Hello, everyone, and welcome to the broadcast. We're going to be continuing our game dev project today. A little loose on the planning. We're going to try to wing some design and maybe some implementation of the enemy spawning system. Right now, we've just got it grafted in to use the weapon spawning system. And we want to not do that. As may be apparent, I've got like a little floor mat that I put in place for the right-hand side camera. That's camera 2. That they seem to like the texture of. It's a nice different texture than even the floor carpet, than the table. So it seems to have attracted some of them over there periodically. I see we have 10 over on the YouTube side. Hey there. Let's see. Ember has actually got her spot today. Sammy is up there in the tree. Sky is over in the play zone, but we don't know how long he'll stay. I say as he passes out of it. And then Mason's on the bed. We'll need to rearrange the cushions. They're a bit out of place. But it'll do for now. We do have a Twitch ad going, so we're just gonna move a little bit slowly here. So last time on the stream, include badly chosen pseudo rock music. Last time on Dragon Ball Z. We had got a start menu and they say placeholder start screen. Actual longer term, these are going to be like sprite buttons. So we'll just create some pixel art that says start. Same with end and all of those other things. Go in, we start. Player can move around. Projectiles are emitted. We can press tab and freeze the game. As I mentioned, rendering continues to happen because that is controlled by shaders. So if this little guy is on the screen, he's going to be bouncing. Could we change that? Yes, sort of. We do need to update the animation system so that we can do two things. One is decouple time since the start of the program and creature ID from the animation frame to use. What we can do is use frame like the starting frame time as far as the core program is concerned to be the driver for it. That way we don't have to worry about things like explosions starting in the middle. That kind of stuff. But it will also allow us to play animations that have a more controlled cycle. But for the time being... Oh, hey there, Esser. Welcome and thank you. I appreciate it. I hope the stream is good. But we can pause it. We can do our little drag and drop. I do need to set up some... ghost drag and drop. That is something that you can just do for the most part. But set up a ghost label that follows the cursor when you drag the things around, so it's more apparent that it's happening. But we can do this where emit things out. We have the blobs in pursuit in a spiral. Looks kind of cool, frankly. Do that again. Have them spiraling, but they will split and split and split. We have placeholders for health up top. So if we remove some of this offense, so they'll get closer. These are reserved spaces. So I get hit, we take a little bit of knockback every second. Right now there's 1 second of iframes. There's a little bit of knockback and you lose health. You run out of health, the game ends. Let's escape, we're back at the menu. We press that to close. Yeah, really rudimentary menus are in place right now. There's definitely going to have to be some UI polish pass going on. But that's kind of where we are. Now, what we're going to want is a separate thing for handling kind of world state. We have a thing that's devoted to handling player state. That's not done yet. We need to get more of like the inventory and whatnot under its control. Oh, but for the time being, I suspect the period where we're doing active playtesting, debugging, and refinement on the stream is going to include a lot of "I'm bad at my own game" moments. But we're going to make a world state one, which is kind of the state of the game currently. There is already a game object, but this is something that's going to drive like what the map looks like, and where and when enemies are spawning. Enemy spawn in particular is something that I do want to get into a scripting pattern, where we call out whether it's this particular enemy ID, or it's that we call out a series of kind of commands and strings that tell us use this kind, like it looks like a blob, it has these movement patterns, it does this much damage, and it appears here. Probably going to predefine the creatures, so we're just calling out by ID. It'll keep it less messy. General plan, though, is to have a sequence of entries that load up, and it would be things like this creature starts spawning at this time and stops spawning at this time, and they have their patterns of entry, their and their modifiers, like how they move, that kind of stuff. We're probably going to need some modifications available in the script to say the how they spawn. You know, edge of the screen, that kind of thing, is probably going to be customized as part of the script. For now, it's probably going to be hard-coded. One for edge of the screen, and likely one pattern for from a particular spot. Well, real life comes first there, Ten. You do what you need to do. Okay, so let's look at our source code here. It's our main menu, which we're not going to be looking at today. Collision check, same way. We will need a startup resource in our services. So here's player state. We're going to add a folder for world state. And just like with player, we're going to have a generic one and we're going to have a base one. We're going to have the standard one, essentially, the one that will be used outside of testing. And then we're going to have a template one, the kind of interface class. That up front. Class, let's get player state open. Extend node 2D. We can probably extend just nodes with these things. Using Godot. Have a good time there, 10. All right. We have a config where we're going to set services here. Someday I am going to remember to go find where some of the templating settings are. Like, if I build in a function, if it suggests a function, I want it to suggest like this instead of with the tailing open bracket space close bracket. Because if I have the function, I almost universally do this. So get our services. These don't actually need getter setters because they're just properties. They don't have any special logic for it. But we'll leave it there for now. I don't need to make that change. World state is equal to this. Dot name is equal to world state. I wonder if we can actually have spaces there. We're going to remove the space. All right, so when one of these comes into existence, it loads itself into the services collection. It makes itself globally available and names itself so that when we're doing debugging on the Godot editor, we can see a name called world state instead of a generic placeholder node name. We're going to give it one of these. Like, it's okay when it's like this, because then I have a clean, quick indication that this function does nothing. And it's okay that it does nothing. Anyway. So we have now base world state. Public partial. All right, we want... I'm seeing if this is a pattern that I ultimately want to use. It's the pattern, right? Public virtual. Oh, but this is a hard override. I mean, we should still be able to call the base method. I'm probably just straight up mistaken. Anyway. Action, we're going to generate constructor. Which I don't know what we're going to do with it just yet, but we now have the 2 core bits. So now I think we want a structure to define how we're going to spawn them. Hello, Sherbet. Not only do I feel the weight of him leaping onto the seat and then him shoving himself between the headrest and me, I also hear his claws popping through the seat cushioning. Okay. A little slower tonight. One, we've got a delayed start. It's going to be a little bit of a shorter stream. But additionally, we're kind of sussing this out as we go. So the thing that, like I said, there's two things that the world state, well, several things. We're going to have, in this case, we're going to have a timer here, because the world state is going to be the thing that controls whether the time, what matters about the time. This will be like the difference between regular play and kind of endless mode. Is it going to be that when time runs out, or when you hit, like, say, 20 minutes or the 10th floor or something like that, does the game end? Does it keep going? What's it do? Like, time is a dangerous one. Yeah. This class conforms with as many of the ISO 8601 standards as possible. It follows the proleptic Gregorian calendar. Ooh, nice. So by default, this is going to be 0, and one of the common things that's going to happen here is plus equals delta. We increment the time each time. Part of this is going to be that we will add a timer UI to this. Add a folder for now. What's going to happen is we can either update it, or more likely the timer is just going to be told, this is the new time. That is, the timer itself will do nothing. So I don't think we need to jump through the hoops of setting up what the time looks like, because everything about the existence of a timer and how the timer behaves will be controlled by the world state. Is a and it will have we're gonna have a start and an end time. Then Okay, for the time being, we're going to operate under the assumption that when an entity appears, um, we be indicating a specific entry. So we're gonna indicate blobs, and then we'll have some sort of entry pattern descriptor that tells it how many to spawn and where. Uh, this would actually dovetail into behaviors related to movement patterns. So if that creature splits into 3 after 3 seconds, if I have 5 spawn points, that will be 15 blobs after 3 seconds. That kind of thing. Something we can actually use, or do we need to? I mean, we could manually do the sort, where every time we pull an entry, we insert it into the list in the proper order. Effectively an n squared list creation. Because I could... Yeah. So whenever we enter something in it, we're going to pass in the start time in as the key in it. The assertion here is these don't change. You don't mess with the spawn entries. Oh. You know, I've been sitting on the cam screen for a little bit. Ha. Oh dear. Well, that's our scuff away for the day, and everything will be fine going forward. Sorry about that, folks. But okay. So we've got the concept of a world state. This is going to drive the actual game state as we go forward. What is going on? We have a concept called a spawn entry. These are going to be define the sequence of things appearing. These are not special case spawns. If we're going to have that, we're going to have other mechanisms to track them. These are the things that we handle over time. So we'll have a sorted list here. A sorted queue? Kind of want to make sure that we have some sort of Hey there, Laura. How's it going? Excuse me. Hey there, Tess. I wanted to do this because I don't care about the key. I just want them to be in order. I don't ultimately need to worry about the sort too much. Well, I mean, there you go. Technically, victory is still victory. Because we're still going to just iterate over until we hit one that's not. Laura's speaking of Brotato, if there's folks that aren't aware of that. A little roguelike kind of, not quite a bullet hell. Got more in common with Vampire Survivors, so closer to a bullet heaven, but there are projectiles. Not a fresh new game, but still a fun one. That is a fantastically broken item there. That is a hard scaling doodad there. Can I just do by index? I should just be able to do first, yeah. Well. I is less than spawn entries. Count. And I is equal to 0. I is less than the maximum, and on entries I. That's not what we want. Variable. Implement at I dot start time value dot start time. Oh dear, this is okay. This is the beginning ones. I feel like we can have two. All right, so the first one gets entered by its start time. Active ones will get entered by their end time. And we're going to go until the end time hasn't been activated yet. Ugh. This is going to be messy, though, because we're going to want to be able to move at here. What are we going to do? Because we... Okay, Tess. So what we've got is... Well, what we're trying to do is we're trying to set up the spawn sequence control. When we start spawning things, how often we spawn them. You know, how many, will there be a limit? How often do we do it? That kind of thing. So the first thing I want to do is find out, is there a spawn entry that we want to begin working with? And then we have ones that are working, and we want to say, is it time to end this one? So with the active ones, we can just go through and find out, is the first one done? If the first one is done, remove it and then cycle again. So we're going to go until we run out of them or until the first one is not going to get removed. And once that happens, we then iterate over them and have them do their thing. So the general thought is to have these entries in an order and turn them from... No, wait, actually. No, it's... So, I have two collections. One that's sorted by start time and one that's sorted by end time. Once they are started, we take them out of the start time one and put them in the end time one. So that we can do that, only the first one matters for whether we start or stop. If the first one and the to be started, the entries in general, isn't ready to spawn, then we don't care about everything else in the list. If the first one in the active spawners isn't ready to stop, we don't need to worry about stopping anything in the active list. Oh, okay. Yeah. Then we just use a while loop. Element spawn in trees. Dot element at. I think we can just do a first one, I think. Yeah. Value dot start time less than or equal to current time. All right. So we're going to iterate over it. So as long as there's something there and the current one is ready to go, that is, its time is less than or equal to the current time. Now we're going to so then we'll essentially pop from the queue here. Then, hello, Sammy. Then we'll be delayed by Sammy, who gets some back scratches as she stands awkwardly blocking the keyboard and part of the camera. Ember actually has her spot for once, so she's in maximum comfort pose. Well, not quite, but Ember generally doesn't do maximum comfort pose. You know, that twisted into a pretzel pose that some cats like. You know, that partially on their back, but rotated laterally across their body into a slow spin until they're upside down from the other half. And then usually at an, like, in an L curve. Sherbet is prone to that. Sammy tends to loaf a bit or curl into a ball. Ember tends to loaf or lay on her side. Mason is largely a lay on his side guy. He's getting... He will accept chest and belly scratches, though. So he'll roll to the side. This guy is a back scratches or kind of a stroke his back, but otherwise mostly loafter on his side. Anywho, copy this. Say active spawn entries and active spawn entries dot end time is less than or equal to current time. And we'll iterate over that until we find until we find one that isn't, or we don't have any. Spawn entry in spawn active spawn entries. Okay, there. Convenient use. Oh, another I saw another winner of an article as far as large language models today. The thrust of it was that somebody had come up with a new breakthrough method for increasing the accuracy of the results of a query. And what it boiled down to was that there was an intermediate step during the query process where the requester could look at the data that the model had kind of aggregated in which to form its conclusion, and they could fact check it and verify that the data was accurate before it supplied its response. So, in order to make a large language model more accurate when you query it, all you've got to do is be a subject matter expert and do your research. Then you can verify what it says is accurate. I'm sure I'm oversimplifying something about it, but it really is just driving home the you need to have a competent person to make them valuable at all. So why not just have the competent person and make it an assistant instead of pretending that you can make it a replacement? Okay, so we get the entry. I could do a pre and post set on this, but we do run the risk of running into this as an issue if I try to preset it. But this will work. Or it should work. Ideally, this is not a operation that actually takes place. This is just a retrieve the first thing into collection. Like, I hope this is constant time. It's not, well, for now we'll hope it's not a problem. Okay. So first we're going to go through and we're going to add these. Almost universally, these are likely to be added at the end, but it's still possible that one that gets added now is going to be very quickly removed. Thinking about it, I shouldn't actually need to worry about that. So what I could have is one that will last a grand total of once. That is effectively its spawn frequency plus like 1. Or, plus 0.001 or something like that, some infinitesimal number. Because once it has fired that one time, the next time delta comes around, it will be less. That is risky, though. We could change this pattern. We could change this pattern. So we have iterations. I might need to make this a class just to be sure it persists properly. Anybody happen to know off the top of their head if I retrieve? My understanding is that because this is a struct, I could do as reference here do that? No. Structs are set by value. Like, I'm not going to be setting this to a pointer to a struct. So I can't just change this. Which means the number of times it will spawn needs to be changed within this, which would be a hassle. Now, I could refer to it by pair because this is going to be an object. You know, pair.value kind of thing. But I only never ever need to change pair.value to change the number of times we've iterated on it. There will always be it would change our whole removal logic, essentially. And I also don't know if I change a key value pair's... Can I change a key value pair's key in this? No, we are going to do purely frequency and when you stop. This is not the correct value, but we are going to... We're going to set it to a really big number. As far as this is number of seconds. So let's do a little bit of napkin math here. Minutes, hours, days, years. Oh, yeah. If we put it at 1 billion is the limit, then we shouldn't run out of time. We can just have a hard game end state if end of time is reached. Sorry, don't care, you're done. I'm sure by then some sort of memory leak will have blown up their computer anyway. Hey there, Lunar. No vehicle construction system yet. Okay, frequency and we have... Okay. So this is where we are going to clone the entity of the matching. We're going to use this key to spawn one. As long as we are within the window, as long as this much time has passed since the last time we did this, so time since the last spawn is greater than or equal to frequency, then we are going to use the spawn pattern to get the layout, and then we are going to use that pattern X times. So this might be, hey, spawn X slimes, and those slimes are randomly allocated around the edge of the screen. Wherever the edge of the screen might be. That's going to be our standard. Then there might be things like, I don't know, hollow cure style, they appear on one side kind of thing. Those would often have a movement pattern that would be, and go left kind of thing. But we'll have to figure out more ways to make that clean. We might have to come up with behavior lists that are baked in here to say, like, okay, it's a slime. These are going to move towards the player. These are going to charge left. These are going to circle. These will do the kind of compacting circle, expanding circle, the in-out kind of pulse. Any number of things that we could have going. We'll have to figure that out later. For now, they're going to move in the fashion that they are predefined to move. We're going to use this to get the values. We are going to edit the structure in value for the moment, because that should be a saved value. This should be reference. This is by value, I believe. So we're going to say entity to spawn is equal to services catalog dot what is the method called? They are gets, and we're going to call get entity with the key. So we get an entity. If the where value time since last spawn plus equals delta. Oh. How are we gonna do? Well, easy peasy. You're a class now. since last spawn plus equals delta. If entry time since last spawn is greater than or equal to spawn entry dot frequency. Spawn is equal to 0. Get based on the entity key. Then think. Dot. I is less than spawn entry, spawn count is plus, then do the thing. We'll do this once. It is technically 6 one way, half a dozen the other, ultimately, but services catalog copy spawn So we fetch it from the collection once, and then we just duplicate it multiple times. Technically, when I do this, it will duplicate the one in the catalog. So we've got a copy here, and I'm going to make a copy of a copy each time. Let's just do this. We get a copy of the one in the catalog spawn count times. And we will do this repeatedly every time we do update. And for the time being, we're going to say spawn entries. That div spawn entries equal to that. Then so we need to come up with the idea of spawn patterns and how they work. This will actually be something we also want to do with projectiles. Is when we initially create them, we should look at them and say, how do I want to spawn this? When it's a weapon or when it's a weapon item, then we should have a spawn pattern on it. To say, hey, this one spawns in the player, this one spawns randomly on screen, that kind of stuff. The same is actually true of monsters too. So monsters and actual weapons have a where to spawn kind of flag. New vector 2.0 for now. Then hey, Florian. Welcome back. But a wrist rotation here. Ouch, ouch. That weren't here when I described it. I got a little floor mat thing. It's got a nice, it's kind of a bristly texture, a little bit softer than that, but it's still at least as coarse as the carpet, if not a little bit more so. It's such that Ember is willing to like roll around on it, and several of the others have come to sit on it, so they like the variation. So hopefully we'll see more of them on the table in the same way that Ember is there now. Okay, so the X and the Y need to be determined here. So we have a fraction of the screen. No, we have fixed values, and we're looking for effectively plus or minus 1 on it. Are we talking like linear reflection, like ray traced bouncing? Or for reflect, or are you saying essentially distortion of the light in some fashion? Florian's question being, would I rather have the ability to reflect most of the light around you or absorb most of the light around you? And my corresponding request for clarification is this like vector-based reflection? Are we talking, a photon comes in and gets bounced off according to how it collides with the surface? Or are we talking some sort of ability to manipulate it such that it does not collide? Because if it's just a direct reflection, then I'd take absorption. Well, actually, no. If it will be scattered around in the dark room, then that's invisibility. Well, effectively, it's kind of a predator camo scenario. Because the visibility of any given photon is now, its ability to collide given a light source aimed at you is very limited. I was initially going to say absorption if we were just talking reflection, but then I thought about it and I would say reflection, because I don't want to turn on a power that essentially would start to cook me very quickly. I would rather have a power that allowed me to stay nice and cool while out in the sunlight. Oh, how did we do this? Let's look at the inventory. Rename that while we're at it. I had a pattern for doing this spawning. There we go. So, we're tracing a circle that is 960 on an edge out. Actually, no. This is... This is a rotated position on a circle using radians. And then we are multiplying that vector by 960. That's the pi over 180 part is getting the radians. And then next double is going to be between 0 and 1. And that is fraction of a full circle. And then 960 is 10 squares, which will... Let's add another square. There, 11 squares. It means things spawning at the top take longer to get into view. All right, so we're going to take this. And in base world state, we're going to take that. Okay, we've got that one now. Spawn dot position is equal to position. And save another needless set. Doing that. Okay, so at the moment, if it's a creature, it's spawning on the edge of the screen. Is that immediately right now, or is this at some earlier point? I mean, in general, I would say the former. The question being, would I like to essentially be stupid now and then grow increasingly smart over time, or the opposite? Since it would start right now, I mean, every 3 weeks, increasingly smart. It ultimately depends on what degree of change we're talking about. Intelligence is very relative. It's largely subjective and topical. If it is general, if it is like the sum of all knowledge, if I'm tapping the Akashic record, then absolutely start stupid, get smarter. Because even a small percentage of the entire collected knowledge of civilization is a wild increase in knowledge base. As opposed to losing that information would be corresponding. And I mean, every 3 weeks, but you know, you can live a long time. What happens if the little stupider that you get is the removal of critical function, you know? It's like random excision from your mental capacity, then you could have things like, oh, there go your motor skills. Oopsie doopsie, no balance for you. Okay, so now we're going to prefabricate this a little bit. Start at 0. And we are going to add a new spawn entry. I'm and let's put it at 5. Every second. Count is equal to, so for the first 5 seconds, 1 blob a second. Really trying to misspell that. Constants dot enemy entity nanoblob. So we're largely going to do a similar thing right here. So its end time is at the 5th second. So we should get the first update should load that immediately into active. And then we're going to start propagating it. So we should get 1 on the first second. And then end time will fire first. So it's less than or equal to current. So we should get 1 on the 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4 second marks. So we should get 5 spawns out of this. 5 blobs coming into existence, 1 at a time. Let's put this back to 960 to make it more likely that we'll see them. And they'll spawn 1 at a time. Then if I do the same thing, okay, so there's a lot to unpack in this question. So a soulmate, quote, trapped in your mind for 10 years, or a soulmate and have them teleported near you, but they try to kill you for 10 years. Setting aside the assertion that there is the you have a one and only kind of vibe, which is already kind of a social construct that we can do without. But trapped in your mind is already a kind of ephemeral thing. If they're sealed in my mind, that asserts the ability to do that with like an entire person. So either we have that technology or that form of magic exists. You also haven't stipulated what happens after that 10 years. Is it just that my expectation that such a person exists goes away? I feel like that's kind of the case. We're going to assume that's true largely because of the second half of it. And that's that they will try to kill you for 10 years. Now, the fact that they're your soulmate, your one and only forever and ever, means that under normal circumstances, you'd be the thickest of thieves, the best of buds. Um, but something compels them to kill you for a period of time of 10 years. And so the reason I assume that they are just a figment in your mind is that the entire thing posits that there is an entity outside with mind control powers that is able to just inject thoughts into your brain to make you think you have a one and only somewhere out there, or to make them think that they need to kill you and then they can just stop. As mentioned, though, ultimately, I assert that the entire concept of a soulmate is a social construct that has a uh, net negative impact on expectations of intimate relationships, let alone friendships, and is something that we should stop saying. Half second, and this will be uh, 2. So we're not going to set it to 0. We're going to say minus equals spawn entry dot frequency. This does provide some padding for frame rate variations. So it will always try to spawn them a little more frequently. It's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't. If we don't do minus equals, that means that we will get like rounding errors. It will actually be more time is spent before a spawn happens, the laggier that you get. Which isn't terrible, but it can ruin some of the challenge, especially if you find ways to force the FPS lower. Doing it this way means that the laggier you get, the more likely you are to get a clot of spawns, which will, to some extent, exacerbate the problem. I'm kind of more okay with the let's just make it worse. Because if you reach that point, either death is imminent or you're doing it right. So let's see how right you're doing it. The skeleton, because I don't want to rot. Would I rather be a skeleton that can play my bones like a xylophone, or a zombie that can apparently trigger a particular song that I'm unfamiliar with if you scream? Like, you can make people hear this other song. I don't know if the assertion of this is that Florian doesn't like this song and considers it an aggressive power, or really likes the song and feels like that would be something that I'd want to be able to do to people in a friendly fashion. But either way, I don't want to be a zombie, because you run into the all of the variations of zombie are pretty much bad. Anytime they're not bad, they're described in such a way that they're not a zombie. They are generic undead, or a person that supposedly died but shows no signs of it, or just they're immortal. Okay. So assuming this comes into existence and we have to set that up, we got to set up our scenes and whatnot. Um, Once this is active and it's getting update calls, it should, for 5 seconds, spawn 1 blob per second. Might do 10 and 10. We'll say 10 seconds, 1 blob per second, so we can see them coming. Then at the 10-second mark, it will start spawning 2 of them every half second. That is the goal we wish to achieve. So now we're going to go to our scenes, make sure that we haven't broken anything. I think I changed inventory, so we do want to double check that. Core, it's part of the game, it's part of the... It's technically part of the player state, but... Okay, it still has a script attached. We are going to rename this one. Well, that was interesting. Screen flickered a bit there. Why am I typing rename? I guess that's what I want to do, but... Menu, we got all of the thingies. So now we need to go into our default startup resource. Okay. Public packed scene. Okay, so it's had some suggestions before that were questionable, like noticeably questionable. But come on, autocomplete, you're drunk. Like, you've got a health UI prior variable. Okay, well, I'm making another exported variable. What should I? What do you think it should be called based on what you've seen before? Health UI. Oh. So this is another one that has implications. So anyone and anything on Earth is open-ended. That is infinite power scaling as far as your physical capabilities. That is, as soon as there is something on Earth that displays strength characteristics greater than you, you become stronger than it. Additionally, referencing a joke that we've used about Monster Hunter in the past, strength has side effects. That is, if I am strong enough to lift, let's say, 1,000,000 pounds, that means my skeleton can withstand that crushing force over my head. It means my flesh can withstand that, like the meat of the hands over bones. It also means I have things like density control powers that prevent me from pile driving myself into the earth by attempting to do that. The fact that all of that stuff happens to me constantly means that I'm invincible. Like, everything about your body is invincible at that point. So while it would be cool to be able to do some, like, airbending, I will take Hulk powers but sane, please and thanks. Okay, so now we have a world state. We need to go in and now we need to create a world state as a scene. Space world state. Base world state will have a script attached to it, and that script is baseworldstate.cs. Which we load, it comes in. Hey, look, a world state. Go back over, we go to our standard startup resource, the default, I should say. And we are going to rebuild the project so it reveals the new exported variable that we just made. Hurrah. Take you, put you right there, and now we have access to you. So we should go into services now, where we're setting all of this stuff up. Startup resource dot world state dot instantiate as a world state. Then so a choice between a giant flying dinosaur or a big marine dinosaur. I'd probably take the flying one, largely because the physiology of a marine creature allows for less use of like dexterous digits and the like. And you'd also have to live in the ocean. And as we mentioned on one of your prior questions, within the ocean lies terrors. And the presupposition of both of these things existing, large aerial predator has a greater capability, greater survivability prospects than large marine predator, because again, there are horrifying things under the water. But there's a limit to how horrifying you can have on land and be capable of dealing with large thing in air. You know, aerial superiority is important kind of thing. Okay, so we've got you there. Then in the game, we can do add child, services, world state. Okay. So now we have that there. We're going to go into our base inventory and we are going to remove the snippet where we add don't care about the category here because we're just not going to add blob. And this will totally work now. Compile errors. Bit of a spin there happening. Oh, no. Player did get created. Maybe it didn't. Player equal to services get player. mouse. We just don't update its position. Player state is null. Makes sense that camera handler exists before that. Survival evolved, you mean? We're not even done with the game. Let's add paid DLC to game. Yes, I have played Ark. It's okay. It is amongst the survival craft games that all feel the same. It's even beyond like sane general survival craft mechanics, you know. Find thing, whack other thing with thing until get resource, combined resource and thing to make better thing to whack other thing with. The difficulty that I have with it is that we see a great deal of that same vibe, like the way that building is handled, the way that object interaction plays out. It feels like there's some sort of core survival craft package out there that a lot of dev shops are using that makes a lot of the games feel a bit samey. I am aware of Arc Extinction, but have not played it. Okay, so player state is not getting populated. Let's double check our startup resources here just to make sure. Okay, we have a base player state. Okay, I'm not sure if you mean manager or some other thing that I'm not familiar with. It looks like Managarmer, and I don't know what that is. I'm not going to assume that it's not another thing because your secondary thing is an enforcer, which is kind of vague. Huh. Okay, player state exists first. I'm not really sure. I'm not familiar with the game or the nuances of how these things behave or similar. And I feel like the details of that decision are there. Though short range, even short range teleportation, that's one of those scary physics ones. If it is infallible short-range teleportation, then absolutely short-range teleportation. If it is in any way fallible, then absolutely not. That is horrific death waiting to happen. Okay, so we should have an entity manager. Yes, yes. Okay. Inventory not showing up as a node. Base inventory is an inventory. And an inventory is a node 2D. Then on the Godot side, base inventory has a script. Let's assign the script again. Get that in there. We're going to So we have a little bit of a hiccup going on here. One of the types has stopped working. Okay, yeah. So in adding the game, we go into the game, and when the game is ready, it's going to call prepare game services, and it's going to add each one. And each time they're instantiated, and as part of instantiating them, we are adding them. This part right here. I go to a player state right there. And if I do base player state, we don't have an override for it, so it should be using... Oh, no, there's the override. We do call into base, which will do the same thing. It should come into existence as of that moment. We are going to go over into the Godot side. We'll rebuild. Clear that, rebuild, just to be sure. Hello, Joseph. Welcome. Welcome. Oh, kitty cat missing. We're working on our game. We're trying to fix a bug right now. It does not crash out, but also doesn't function. Okay, so I do this. Entity manager is instantiated and exists. Sammy is a cute little tuxie. Let's see how many of the others we can spot. We should see Ember. Yeah. We have 4 of them visible. So Sammy is top center. She is second smallest. Hello, Swag. Welcome. Lower right, that's Ember. Left center is Sherbet. He is the middleweight. And then upper left is Sky. He is one of the biggest. He's kind of competing with Mason. I generally say that he's the biggest because he's way fluffier too. Comparable size, but Mason does feel at the very least denser. Kind of hard to tell. Aw. It's always sad losing a companion. Alright, Entity Manager exists. Renderer should exist. Yes. Collision Manager should exist. Yes. Now we have inventory. Does inventory need player state? Nothing in the external, but in the base state. Okay, inventory got instantiated this time. How about player state? Oh. This can't be that way. Okay. We need to not use the sorted list because it is in the background, it is acting as like a unique keyed hash. So what we can do is, well, let's do some tests. We. Test dot. Or an insert. Might just need to make a list. Mostly a programmer. The game's a little bit not worky right now. Here, let me comment this mess. I am doing the art myself. I don't have the widest skill set when it comes to art, but I did learn to do very low res pixels when it came to doing our Noida mod, so we doing some low res pixel. Okay. These are 16 by 16 pixel sprites. I have worked as a professional programmer for quite a while. So this is 16 by 16, but the sprites are scaled up 6x. It makes the movement a lot more fluid, and then we zoom in accordingly. Mostly application. Right, we need to do that. Just doing a little bit of a demonstration of core game mechanics here. So if you've ever heard of the game called Noita, Noita, one of its big claims to fame is its ridiculously impressive game engine. The tagline being, every pixel is simulated. And it is. But the other thing is wand construction, weapon construction. Where it is essentially a sequence of instructions fired over time as you are using the weapon. So we're making vampire survivors, but with Noita wands. This particular one fires out a yarn ball every second, and after 3 seconds, it splits into 3 and starts spiraling outward. And then after 3 seconds, it splits into 3 and drops the the outward spiral, and begins spiraling inward onto its path. So it kind of spins in place kind of thing. We have our placeholder health bar across the top. There's some debugging stuff up by my right ear. We don't have creatures in. We're trying to get that part working right now. We were kind of hard coding the creatures in as kind of hijacked the weapon system to jam them in sideways. We've been spending a lot of time on optimization. Everything that you're seeing on screen, except for the numbers. And like these boxes, the numbers, the menu, those are handled by Godot systems. But the yarn balls, the player character, how it moves around, that's all custom stuff. The rendering is handled as a GPU shader. The collision detection is handled as a compute shader run on the GPU. All of this for optimization purposes, so I can do silly stuff like this. Because again, we made a Noita mod a ways back. That is where the little creature comes from, and where my character model ultimately comes from, is the community Noita mod we made. So in the upper left, the middle number is the number of things that exist. So at about 3,000 things in existence right now, we're still over 60 frames a second. These are 3,000 things that are animating, rendering, they are moving in different ways every frame, and the collision is happening for every one of them, checking to see if there's anything they need to run into. Our goal is to reach... Our goal is to be able to hit a victory condition that we had in the Noita mod. And the victory condition that we had was essentially one-shotting Colmy with as big a number as possible, as many times in a row as possible. We had set it up so that the game cycles every time Colmy is killed. You immediately start again with the difficulty amped. But was to one-shot Colmy with as big an explosion, with as big a number as possible, but to also achieve what we referred to as minutes per frame. In this case, we can still get seconds per frame, frames per second, up into like the 5 digits of entities on screen. Ideally, like from a design perspective, from a level build perspective, that's not going to happen, but we want to make it so that if somebody gets really lucky with the build that they've got and the RNG that they've got, that crazy stuff can happen. For reference, our best record for damage against Colmy was in the quintillions. I think we were waiting there and chatting for upwards of half an hour, waiting for the number to get done rendering. But yeah, this is what we're going for. We're working on monster spawning today. This is our global services. We're kind of jerry rigging dependency injection into the Godot engine ecosystem. Okay, so we go into our base world state. We can't use sorted list because it's effectively a hash. That's unfortunate. But we can still do this. We are using Godot engine, as I mentioned. We started this project using entirely GD script, the Godot engine language. But as we went along, performance requirements kept cropping up. We started with GD script. We switched to using very optimized low-level interactions with the Godot engine. That wasn't enough. So we switched to C# and started using complex, like low-level interactions with the GD script collision system and similar, and that wasn't good enough. So now we're using C# with custom rendering and collision detection, and I feel like it's good enough for now. I might obsessively tweak it more in the future, no guarantees. Such as programming. Okay, we can just add a list entry. Okay, we should be able to insert at. And that's the index that it will take on. So then we can just... Okay. And then we can still get the first element. Yeah. Okie doke. You are just lists, and changing you to this will make you complain. Okay, we need... Should be able to do a sort on this to output the collection into something different. Where each time we add each time we add to it, we need to resort, which shouldn't happen terribly frequently, so it shouldn't be a problem. Void sort lists. have to look up some link again. Let's see. Error. Sounds like we should be able to use a lambda. I don't want to use a lambda, but what are we going to do? Can't be a default comparator. We need a way to let's look at one of our other examples and see if I can remind myself how we do this, as is tradition. Let's see if we can recreate this. Said I could use a lambda. Okay, no, that was... Comparison comparator. Just a minute. Louder a bit. Okay, we could have a compare method, but that's not what we want. Compare to. I think it needs compare to as the default. Compare to. You can pass in a function. An X and the Y for the type. Okay, I think we can do that. Right. Just like 0 or 1. So 1 is X is greater than Y. Start time 1 else. Okay. Same thing. Active spawn entries. And we'll use end time here. We might have to reverse this, but we'll find out. Spawn entries. Sort. There we go. We're only ever going to do this under one circumstance, so we can actually avoid do that. It's the only time we sort that. And then this one gets sorted if something changes. List. If it's changed, that. That. Okay. That. Dot. On tree. Spawn entry. All right. All right, what's broken? Oh, we need to call update on it. World state let's try to exaggerate that a little bit more. Okay. For 10 seconds, it's one at a time. Every 2 seconds. Spawn, position, services, player state, player. If here is not equal null, do a thing. Position. Okay, by default, its position is nothing. So we can just do plus equals that. Okay. Let's exaggerate it further. None of them spawn. And then a bunch of them start spawning at the 10-second mark. Seven, 8, 9. Okay, thereabouts. There we go. There we go. We have basic spawning logic. And player gets wrecked. Very nice. Okay. Good times. Good times. We're going to wrap up here for the night. So what we've done today is that we've got the infrastructure in place, the basic structure in place for generating the spawn pattern for the game. It's very manual right now. I have to go in and, like, you know, hard code the spawn sequence in. But what it'll allow us to do is just go in and say, like, hey, at the 5th minute, start spawning these. It will also be an opportunity to consider doing, like, board wipes and whatnot. But, you know, I don't really think we need to for the time being. If something was spawned, it stays spawned. Failing that, we have some sort of, like, parse all of the entities and remove everything of this type. Or, you know, remove everything but the player kind of moments. But for the time being, just having a spawn entry that says, hey, create a creature this frequently, starting now, or at this point and ending at that point. Good deal. Good deal. All right, everybody. I hope you had a good time watching with us today. If you like what you saw and would like to see more, remember to like, follow, subscribe, comment, all of those good buttons. Press them, do the thing. It helps the channel grow and will help you see things like this in the future. And with that, I hope the rest of your day is good, and I'll see you next time.